We have to have a scope. We have to have an outline. We have to make sure that we're pretty much following the procedures that were outlined for us. Meaning, if a company contracts with you and tells you they want you to penetrate the network and you have full access, normally you're going to ask for a scope. Like, what do you mean by full access? What can I target? What can I not target? What can I and can I not do? That way you have some scope. Sample laws have been SOX, HIPAA, PCI DSS, the Communication Assistance for Law Enforcement, FISMA, Computer Fraud Act of 96, the Privacy Act of 74. There's still way more laws, but those are just some common ones. All right, so let's go to points to remember. Laws that impact and guide many penetration tests. Because again, you don't want to try to pen test something and then go to jail. So you have to understand the laws that are going to be impacting you, as well as making sure you do things with permission. Meaning, if you do things without permission, that could mean jail time. Let's talk about the actual process. What does it mean to do a pen test? So normally it follows a series of steps. It ensures tasks and goals. They normally are very based off of need. They may be legally mandated and they can be customized. Normally, the general flow is reconnaissance, scanning, enumeration, system hacking, privilege escalation, planting backdoors, and then covering tracks. And we're going to get in depth with each of these major areas. So this is the end of our first chapter. So once the test is completed, normally you're going to be writing a detailed report on your findings, potential outcomes. That means you're going to have to be presenting your pen test report to your client, because again, we're assuming that you're doing this legally. Maybe include some recommendations and a recommendation with some remediation. So that was our PowerPoint for the first chapter, but there are certain things that that our PowerPoint talked about that our book covered more in depth. Things like understanding the code of conduct and ethics, because the EC Council does actually test on the code of conducts. Things like keeping things private and confidential, protecting the intellectual property, disclosing the appropriate person or authorities potential dangers to any type of e-commerce, providing services in your area that are competent, honest, keeping things straightforward. There's a huge list, but pretty much, if you go through them, do what you know is right, conduct yourself accordingly, be moral, and keep your ethics. You do it legally, you don't do anything shady, and that's in the gist, it's code of conducts. So there's been a few other things that they discuss, like certain terms, like hack value, and that's going to be the value of the target, target of evaluation, or TOE. That could be a resource or a system that we're looking at penetrating. An attack, that is the act of targeting and actively engaging the target of evaluation. Exploit, this is a clearly defined way to breach a security, whether it be, again, a system or a person. 0 day, this describes a threat or vulnerability that's unknown. Security is the state of well-being in an environment. Threat is considered to be the potential violation of security. Vulnerability is a weakness. Daisy chaining, this is the act of performing several hacking attacks in a specific sequence. Our first chapter also talks about security as it relates to convenience. Can we have both convenience and security, or is it a sliding scale? As you get more secure, you actually take away from convenience. As you get more convenience, do you get less secure? It discusses things like a white box, gray box, and black box. And this is basically the knowledge that you have of the network. A black box is when you have little or no knowledge. A gray box is you have some knowledge, and a white box is you have full knowledge. Hacking methods, which we already talked about, that's the reconnaissance or footprinting, scanning, enumeration, system hacking, escalation of privileges, covering tracks. Again, that common step is not going away. That's going to be very common. When you decide to go through the process, normally, again, you get permission. Lastly is incident response. As a pen tester, your job is to provide information that will reduce the chances of a security breach. So you go through the appropriate incident responses, and part of that report could also be policy adjustments for items that you are able to breach or procedural items that you are able to bypass because of, again, a lapse in compliance or a lapse in policy. For example, calling in saying that you're the help desk and you need someone's password. That could be a policy issue. That could be a user training issue. Incident response teams understand how they function, understand the different phases of an incident response, things such as the containment, the analysis, the recovery, the repair, the feedback, the response, the triage, and the investigation. Understand how this incident response plan functions. That way, in the case of a data breach or in the case of a actual hacker breaking in, there is a specific plan in place. Other things that could be done are things like a business impact analysis or business continuity planning or disaster recovery planning. Again, we're going to talk about these more in depth, but have a good understanding of business continuity, have a good understanding of what SLA is or service level agreement is, kind of look at how to recover a system, how to collect evidence as it relates to incident response. I love how none of these were discussed in the PowerPoint. I'm going through page by page by the actual textbook so I can make sure that I'm covering every major topic. Part of the evidence collection, understand what types of evidence there are and how to collect it. Things like best evidence, secondary evidence, direct, conclusive or opinion, collaborative or circumstantial evidence, and kind of understand what they mean. Rules of evidence, how to do a chain of custody. So if you're the person collecting the evidence, how does it go from you to a judge, a lawyer, law enforcement, things of that. Understanding how to report the different incidences. And actually, that was every major topic in our chapter 1 for the CEH version 9 Cybex book. Again, this is just a nice brief overview. We'll get more in depth as needed. Thank you.